Hello students. Now that we have our difficulty ramp in place, it's controlling the spawning of enemies. It's going to spawn an enemy every so often as we add more and more platforms, and by the time we get 10 platforms in our sequence, we should have 6 enemies on our screen, one on each of our memory platforms. So this lesson, we are going to add this pressure system of enemies. We'll call them like little sentries. So they will just scan going back and forth on the platform. And if we hit one, it's going to reset our sequence for us. So let's head to the computer screen and let's dive right into building out this enemy system. So I have lesson 6 starter file open right here on our pressure system of sentry enemies. I'm going to minimize that file though, of course, and we are going to open up the light steps folder directly and go to lesson 6. So now we have it in our browser. And so let's play and see what we've got right here. So, all right, I'll hit yellow, yellow, red. All right. And at this point, it says I should be getting an enemy here. And I have no enemy whatsoever. So that means we got to go out and build out this enemy system. So let's see what we're going to do. Mission number 1, it says we have to adjust the enemy system constants. So we have a brand new system that we are bringing into our game. That means we are probably going to get some type of constants. These are knobs or things that we can tweak, dials that will change how this system works in our game. And we find those in our student edit zone. So we have our enemy width, our enemy height, our enemy speed min, and our enemy speed max. So our player is a square, right? Its size is the same, both horizontal and vertical. And we could make our enemies the same. I'm going to make their height the same as the player's size. So I'm going to do player size. So it's going to be the same height, but I don't want my enemy to be square. I'm going to kind of make my enemy more of a rectangle. So they're not going to be as wide as they are tall. And one of the ways I can do this is by taking their player size and I'll multiply it by 0.75. So they'll be 3/4 as wide as they are tall. And that will give me like a nice little rectangle. And that body shape will stand out against my square player, I think. So I'm pretty happy with that. All right, now our enemies are not all going to travel at the same speed. So we're going to give them a minimum possible speed and a maximum possible speed. And then we'll randomly select from that when we create our enemies. So our minimum speed will be 80 pixels a second. And our maximum speed will be 160 pixels per second. So double their slowest speed. Okay, let's scroll down. Let's keep looking at what we got in this enemy system. Do we have any new colors in our color palette? Ooh, we do. We have an enemy body color and an enemy eye color that we'll work with. So that'll be good to know when we get to maybe drawing our enemies. And then let's look at our gameplay variables. Outside of the student edit zone, we have a brand new array, a brand new container called enemies that will hold the enemy objects that we create. So enemy 1, enemy 2, enemy 3, and enemy 4. And then we'll be able to loop over each and every one of these things in our array and do operations on them. So that is going to be wonderful for us. All right, let's head to mission number 2. Now that we understand this enemy system, mission number 2 says we got to set up our enemy data. Okay, so when we introduce a brand new object into the world, and this is the first, I'd say this is like the first time we've done it, because we really didn't have to do it for our sequence like that. The platforms were already there. And so same with our player. So when we introduce a new object into the world, I typically like to use 3 functions to help me do this. A generate data for that object, so I have generate enemy data. A spawn of that data, so spawn enemy, and a update enemies. So we're going to leverage these 3 things here in this video. And then let's just look, what else do we have? Oh, we also have check player enemy collisions. So we're going to check to see if the player has collided with the enemy at all. But right now, we got to create our enemy data. All right, and we're going to pass in a platform index. So when we generate an enemy, that enemy is going to be tied to one of these 6 platforms, index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And so we can only have one enemy on a platform at a given time. So that's going to be an important thing for us. So we're going to pass in that platform index, and we're going to go grab that particular platform. So from our array of platforms, we're going to reach in and grab. So if this is like index 0, we're going to reach in and grab the first platform in our array of platforms. It's going to be this one right here. And so now I have that as a variable. I also have a variable called start on left, and we are asking a question. We're going to generate a random number, which is a decimal when you just do it this way, between 0 and 1. And we're going to see if it's less than 0.5. And if it is, start on left will be true. Because when we start our enemy, we could start it over here on the left and send it rightwards, or we could start it over here on the right and send it leftwards. So we're going to randomize that, and that'll look pretty good. So we are creating an enemy right here, and we are returning that enemy object out of this generate enemy data function. So here is our object. Our enemy has 4 properties, okay? It's got an X property, a Y property, a VX property, and a platform index. So let's look at the X property, because this is sort of cool. We have this start on left question mark. And so this question mark is known as a ternary operator. Essentially, we are going to ask a question that can be true or false. Let's look here. The random number that we generated, is it less than 0.5? If it is true, what we are going to do is we are going to take platform X and set the X property to platforms X. So that is going to be our platform's X coordinate. It's going to be the left side. So our enemy's X coordinate is going to be all the way over here on its left side. If this question is not true, then we are going to set our X property to platform X plus our platform's width. So platform X plus our platform's width. That would put the left side of our player right here, and then we subtract the size of our player, the width of our player, to push him back over. So now we started over here on the right-hand side. So that's going to work awesome for us to randomly select whether we put our enemies on the left side or the right side of our platform. For our Y position of our enemies, we just take our platform's Y variable, which is the top of our platform. Boop, so we put it right here. And then we want to subtract the enemy's height, so we move it up, and it's the bottom of the enemy that's going to be right there on the platform. So those look great. But VX does not look great. So we got to make sure that we randomly select a speed. So I'm going to do random, and we had 2 speeds, enemy speed min to enemy speed max. Awesome. Now there's only one problem with this. Enemy speed min is 80. Enemy speed max is 160. Now VX is either going to be somewhere between positive 80 and positive 160. Let's assume it is positive 100. If I start my enemy over here on the left, it is going to move with a speed in the horizontal direction of positive 100. That's going to move it to the right. That's wonderful. But if it starts here on the right and its speed is 100, it is going to want to move to the right. That is not wonderful. I need to move it to the left if it's starting over here on the right. And to move it to the left, we would negate that velocity. So what we're going to do is we are going to ask a question using the ternary operator. We're going to ask this exact same question. We're going to say, hey, let's ask a question. Start on left. Is that start on left variable that we created true? Is it yes? If it is, if we are starting on the left, then we will move with positive speed. Otherwise, if the answer to that question was no, we put a colon here, and now we put the answer we would take, or the value we're going to take if our answer was no. I'm going to do negative random. So we're going to put a negative sign here to make it go to the left of enemy speed min and enemy speed max. Let's do a tab for autocomplete. All right, so now our velocity is set, and we're leveraging or using these ternary operators quite nice. And then we got to set what platform our enemy is on. So remember, we said we passed this platform index. We should probably use it right here and set it as the platform index property of our enemy. All right, mission number 2 is done. Let's go see what mission 3 has us do. Mission number 3 puts us in spawn enemy. All right, let's work through this function a little bit. It says if the length of our enemies array is greater than or equal to the max enemies on screen number, and that is our ramp controlled number. So like right now it is equal to 1, and then it'll get bigger as our game goes on because our ramp is controlling it. If our current array has more than the max numbers of enemies on screen, we just return out of this function. We say get out of this function. We're not going to do anything else. But if it's not, then we're not going to return, and we're going to go on. And so we create an array right here called open platform indices. If I have an enemy, and that enemy is right here, if I'm going to spawn another one, I got to know what spots are open to spawn on, because we have established we're not going to put more than one enemy on a given platform. So I loop through. So this is a nice example of a for loop. I say let I equal 0, I less than 6. So I is going to run when I is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because 6 is not less than 6, so it'll stop. And I reach into my platforms array and I grab the array at index I. So at index 0, at index 1, at index 2, at index 3, at index 4, at index 5. And I check to see if its has enemy attribute is false. That's what that exclamation point means right here. So I check to see, does that platform not have an enemy? And if they do not have an enemy, it means they're open. And I take that array that I just built and I push that particular index into it. I say, hey, index 0, platform 0 is open. Platform 1 is not open, so we're not going to do it. Platform 2 is open. Platform 3 is open. Platform 4 is open. And then look what we say. We say, hey, if the length of our open platform indices is just 0, we should probably get out of here. Let's just return, because there's no place to spawn an enemy. But if that's not true, we move to mission number 3. We've got to spawn an enemy. So we're going to spawn an enemy on a valid platform. Ensure enemies are placed on open platforms only. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to target our array enemies, and we're going to push something into that array. And what do we want to push into the array? Well, we want to push in an enemy, and we get an enemy. It is returned to us from our generate enemy data function. So that's that curly brackets right there represents the enemy with the X property, Y property, VX property, and platform index property. It is going to get returned to us or passed back to us if I call generate enemy data right here. Now there's only one problem. Generate enemy data needs some information in here in order to run. It needs a platform index. So we got to figure out what platform we are going to put this enemy on. Thankfully, I have an entire array of open platform indices. I know what platforms are open. I just have to select one from inside of there. And so the way that I'm going to do it, I'm going to randomly select one. So let's see. I'm going to create a variable. I'll call const chosen index is equal to. We're going to take that array, open platform indices, and I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to select something inside of it. And the thing that I'm going to select is I'm going to randomly select. So I'm going to say random. And I am going to randomly choose from the length of the array. So open platform indices dot length. So if there's 5 elements in it, I will choose a random number between 0 and 5. And that will correspond to our index. But there's only one problem. When you use random, you could get a decimal, right? We could get, if I say 0 through 5, I could get like 3.24. Well, I can't select something inside of my array at position 3.24. So right here in the front, we're going to call floor. And what that's going to do, I'll open a parentheses, I'll close a parentheses, and then I'll put my semicolon for good JavaScript. Floor will just chop off the decimal. So if I generated 3.24 as my random number, it's going to give me a value of 3, and I'll go in and I'll pick the open platform indice at position 3. That's the chosen index, and I'm going to pass that chosen index into my generate enemy data function. So now I'm guaranteed to create an enemy where it has got an open platform. All right, that's some really high level and quality stuff that we're doing here. We should probably go check to see if that's going to give us an enemy. Let's take a look. Let's see what happens. All right, so I actually got to get to a point where I can make an enemy. So green, pink. All right, so I think after this I should maybe get an enemy. I don't see anything, and my game just got frozen. Uh-oh, my game just broke. So we broke something here. We broke something. Let me go take a quick look. I'm going to pause this. All right, folks. Part of this whole process is learning how to debug your work, finding your mistakes, because they're going to happen. And so I have found my mistake. I compared it with my final version. If I go to my final version of the code and I look at my generate enemy data function right here in VX, I randomly choose from enemy speed min, enemy spin max, and enemy speed min and enemy speed max. That is the correct way to do it. And what was I doing in my starter file? I was choosing from enemy speed min, enemy speed max. enemy speed, which does not exist. So I got to make sure I set that to enemy speed min. So if you were following along with me, you might have made that exact mistake as well. So I do apologize for that. Maybe you didn't make it. Maybe you caught me and were screaming at the screen, why would you do that? We don't have enemy speed defined. But now we fixed it. So now that it's fixed, let's test this again and let's see if we generate an enemy. So we'll generate an enemy on our third platform step. So there's our first. Here's our second. And now on to our third. Let's see. Max enemy should be 1. Whoa. That's creepy. Is that an enemy? I think that's an enemy. I think we did it. I think we have an enemy, but it sort of just looks like enemy eyes. I don't know. Let's see. Can we generate a second one? So I'll go here, here, here. All right, we should get a second enemy somewhere on a unique platform. Ooh, and there it is. So it looks like we are populating these correct, but I don't know. It just looks like we have their eyes. And to me, that's really creepy. I mean, maybe that's a good enemy. But let's go look at what Mission 4 has us do. Mission 4 finds us in a function called draw enemies. We got to draw the enemies' bodies. Thank goodness, because just their eyes were creeping me out. Mission 4, the first thing that we do here is we call no stroke, which means give me an invisible marker so you do not see the outline of the shape that I am about to draw. And then we loop through that array of enemies. So right now, if we think about it, if we had, I don't know, say enemy 1, enemy 2, enemy 3, and enemy 4. We had 4 enemies. When we loop through this way, this variable enemy, the first time we run this code in our curly brackets is our enemy 1. The next time this variable is enemy 2. The next time this enemy is enemy 3. And the next time our variable is enemy 4. So this is a really nice way to loop over our array. If we look, what are we doing for each and every enemy? Well, right now we're putting paint in our paint bucket of their eye color, and we're drawing a rectangle for their eye. We got to do the exact same thing for their body. So let's put some new paint in our paint bucket, because I think I remember in our color palette we had an enemy body color. Perfect. And so now we want to draw a rectangle for their body. So the rectangle takes 4 pieces of information at minimum. It takes the x coordinate of the left side and the y coordinate of the top. Those are properties of the enemy. So we'll say enemy.x, enemy.y, and then we need the width and the height of the enemy. All right, well, those are, I think, constants that we set. We had the width, enemy width, and enemy height. And then we're going to pass in, well, let's run this right now. Let's see how these enemies look, because I think we might actually change this. Let's just take a quick look-see. All right, so yellow, and then yellow, green, and then we'll get our enemy and see what it looks like. Okay, and let's see. It shows up with a body, and it does. All right, so that's super rectangular. It's like hard edges on the edge. So if you like that, that's great. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do here is the rect function can take in another optional piece of information, which is a number that represents how much we're going to curve the edges. So I'm going to put a 4 in here, and watch the difference now with our curved edges. The bigger the number there, the more curve you are going to get on those edges. So now I land, and we should see some smoother edges. Yeah, and that looks better for me. So there is my little enemy sentry. Mission number 4 is done. We are now drawing the bodies, not just our eyes. So that's great. But our enemies, they're stationary. They're lame. They got to be moving. They got to move back and forth. So we're going to update the enemy patrol movement in mission number 5. This finds us in our update enemies function. Now, if you look here, update enemies has access to the DT variable. I got to make sure we're actually calling update enemies. I'm sure we are. This seems like something we would be doing in our default draw function of the P5 library that runs every single frame. If we are in play mode, we update our ramp, update our sequence preview, our players, our enemies, and we check enemy player collisions. Okay, so this function is going to get called every single time. If we're showing our sequence, we just return. So we're not gonna move our enemies if we're in the preview state. Then we're gonna check to see if it's actually time to spawn an enemy, and we're gonna spawn an enemy if the length of our array is less than the max number of enemies on screen. So if that's the case, we spawn. Otherwise, we won't. And then we're gonna loop through every single enemy that is in our array. And so this array enemy, or this variable enemy, represents one of those enemies. And we're going to get the platform that it is currently on. So this is perfect. So now we have the platform that it is currently on. And so we are going to move our enemy. So our enemy has an x position, enemy.x, and I want to change it by using its velocity. And so we looked at this relationship. Position is going to equal velocity times time. So I take enemy's velocity, enemy.vx, and I multiply by our time interval, which is dt right here. Very, very good. So I'm going to put a semicolon here. And then it looks like I've got min x and max x. So that maybe is going to determine like where we can move based on what platform we're on. I think that's kind of right. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself because that's probably like our next mission. Let's just see if we move our enemies right now. So I'm going to come down here. Bingo. And then I'm going to go up here. 1. Bingo. And let's see if our enemy starts moving. Hey, there goes our enemy. Whoa, there goes our enemy. Come back, enemy. Why you got to do that? You were supposed to stay on this platform right here. So I think we got to fix some of that. And that's going to be mission number 6. Mission number 6 says we got to bounce on the edges. So it says reverse enemy direction at a platform edge. Keep enemies patrolling within the platform bounds. So right here, we got to check. Do you see how we have minimum x and maximum x? So our minimum x value is going to be the left side of whatever platform the enemy is on. And our maximum x is going to be the right side of whatever platform the enemy is on. And that's exactly what we have figured out right here. So now we're going to ask a question. And it says if. Well, we're going to say if the enemy's x value is less than or equal to the minimum x value that is allowed. So the enemy just got right here. We just went past it. What we're going to do is we're going to set the x value back to the minimum x value, and we're going to reverse the direction of the velocity. So to reverse the direction of the velocity means we're going to multiply by -1. So that looks really, really good right there. So we reset the enemy, we put him right back on that left, and then we send him in the opposite direction. But then we ask another question. And in this question, we're going to say, hey, this time we're going to set the enemy's x position equal to the max x and reverse them and send them in the opposite direction. So that means our x position is now over here. All right, so we're going to check to see if our x position is greater than, so enemy.x, is it now greater than or equal to max x? And if that's the case, let's position them back at that maximum x position and move them in the opposite direction. So now we should have bouncing enemies. Let's check this out. Let's see, do we have enemies that actually patrol? So yellow, and then yellow, blue. All right, I got a lot of ground to cover there. Yellow and blue. And let's see our enemy bounce all over the platform. Here we go. Back and forth. That's a nice looking enemy system. Of course, if I get up here, you know, that enemy's not going to kill me if I hit him. It's only hitting me because it's not part of the sequence, but I could land on that platform. I could touch that enemy. So that's going to be a problem. Let's see what mission 7 has us do. It says limit 1 enemy per platform. All right, so we got to make sure we limit 1 enemy per platform. So inside spawn enemy, we grab our open platforms. We sort of already might be doing this, but let's just do this anyway. Oh, no, what we need to do, if you remember, what did we check? We checked to see to determine if something was an open platform by looking at the platform's has enemy property. All right. So every platform has enemy property. I'll go look at that right now. If we look at generate platform data, we have has enemy, and we hard code it to false. So we know when we start a platform, there's no enemy on it. But what we need to do is we need to actually set that property. So platforms, our array, we're going to go in and we're going to select our chosen index. That's the one that we just put an enemy on, and we are going to target its has enemy property, and we're going to set it to true because now there is an enemy on that particular platform. And now that it's set to true, it will no longer get selected to be an open platform. So that will work wonderfully. And the last thing we'll do it here before we test it all, is figure out if a player collided with an enemy. And this is going to be in our check player enemy collision function. So first thing we're going to say is, hey, if we are showing a sequence, just get out of this function. We're not going to check for any collisions. But if we're not showing the sequence, if the preview is over, it looks like we get a bunch of positioning variables. We've got player left, player right, player top, player bottom. And then for all of our enemies, we get enemy left, enemy right, enemy top, and enemy bottom. So if we collide with a player, we're going to reset the player, restart the sequence, and then get out of this function. But right now it just says if false. That's not going to be good because false is always false. So let's go over here and let's draw a picture and think about how we might actually signify colliding with a player or with the enemy. So imagine this is my enemy. All right, so here's my enemy. And here, maybe over here is my player. Okay, so my player's got a right side, right? So my player's got a right side, and the enemy has a left side. And I want to make sure that the right side is past the left side of the player. That's got to happen if we're going to collide, right? They got to overlap there. So P dot right is got to be greater than enemy dot left. But that's not the only thing that has to happen, because if the player moved all the way over here, that right side is still greater than the left side. It's over here now. But we also want to make sure that this player's left side is less than the enemy's right side. So that has got to make sure we're back in. So we'll say, and we need to make sure that the player's left side is less than the enemy's right side. But that takes care of just the horizontal overlap. There's also this vertical overlap. I mean, what if the player was right here above the enemy? That's not a collision yet. And so our enemy has a top and our player has a bottom. And so we got to make sure, and we got to make sure that the player's bottom is greater, right, farther down than the enemy's top. So player.bottom has got to be greater than enemy.top. And, oh my goodness, we got to have one more, because this player could go all the way down here. What if we were below? Well, now, if we're below, we got to look at the player's top and the enemy's bottom. And we got to make sure that that top, player.top, is above or less than the enemy's bottom. All four of those conditions have to be true to guarantee that our player and our enemy have collided. And then it's going to be bad for our player. We're going to have to reset. We're going to have to start our sequence all the way over. So let's take these four conditions and let's write them in our line of code. So right here, we're just saying if false. Well, I got bad news for you. That's not going to be a good question to ask, because we need to ask 4 questions, and every single one of those questions has to be true in order for us to have a collision here. So we're going to target our player's right side. So player right. We're going to see if it is greater than enemy left. And we're going to say if player left is less than enemy right. Okay, and now remember, we're getting all of those positioning variables from up here, all right? So there is our player's right, our enemy's left. Player's right greater than our enemy's left. Player's left is less than our enemy's right. And now we got to do our vertical check. So we'll say, and player bottom is greater than enemy top. And our last one here, player top is less than enemy bottom. All right, if all 4 of those conditions are true, yes, 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 and yes, then this whole statement, this whole question answers yes. We have collided. We will reset our player and reset our sequence progress so that we have to start over. Let's test our whole enemy system. Let's see if I can get multiple enemies here. So yellow, pink, and then blue. All right, so this will spawn 1 enemy. All right, pink, blue, red. Uh-oh, I broke my game. I broke my game again. Somewhere I have an error. I have to go debug. Going to pause the screen here really quick. I'll be right back. Well, that was an easy and quick one to debug. On line 474 in our spawn enemy function under mission number 7, I'm just being careless. I open up my platforms array and I select something at choose index. It's not choose index. It's chosen index. That's what I needed it to be. So you might want to go back and make that change. And I do apologize for that mistake. Okay, we got to make sure we have the correct variable in here, which is chosen index. Now, with that set, let's check our system. So I'm going to refresh. I'll get blue, cyan. And the path is lighting itself. Blue, cyan, red, and there is our enemy, blue, cyan, and red. Got to avoid that enemy. Okay, blue, cyan, red, green. Okay, blue. Oh, blue first. Blue, cyan, and now I'm going to land on red, but I got to avoid that enemy. If he hits me, I restart, and I got to start all over. You can see my sequence progress went back to 0 out of 4. So blue, cyan, red, green. All right, blue, cyan, red, green, cyan. Oh, and now we got our second enemy, blue. Whew, get out of there. Cyan. Oh, I fell off the edge. Blue, cyan, red, green, cyan. All right, I'm going to pause this video and see how many enemies we can get. Well, I paused the video and then I got this sequence wrong over and over and over again. It looks like I'm going to stop here at 6 steps in my sequence, and I have my 3 enemies here on my platform that are making my life just so unbelievably challenging. I can get this first one, and then if that enemy gets me, I reset there. So we have proven 2 things. We have proven that our enemy system works, and we have proven I'm pretty bad at this game right now, at least while I'm also trying to focus on making this video for all of you guys. If I'm not making this video, I'm just locked in on my game, I can get to the 10th step in this sequence without a problem. I promise you. And with that, I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to go practice my game. So I will see you in the next lesson.